Observe.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 40, the Big 4-0 of the Observe and Rapport show. I'm joined, as ever, by my beautiful co-host, Keith Sullivan. I'm Kyle Brennan.
Yes.
Joined as ever by Keith Sullivan. Brain's getting a little foggy.
It's okay.
Lack of sleep.
Listen,
everything. How you doing, Keith?
I'm fine. It's just, we get up early now. Mm-hmm. Things are very different. I got two of these little things now.
Yeah.
You've got just the one, which, I got to tell you, I feel like I was even more tired back then. I don't know if your body just surrenders to like this whole new ridiculous world, but with two, I don't have like I feel like you're in the trenches of it right now, of like they're just a lot, and with two, it's kind of it's more like you're so screwed that it's fine. You know what I mean?
It's kind of like doing your first, tour in Iraq.
Right.
Know?
That's probably
you're
what
still
it
getting
is.
used to everything, but once you go back the second time, you're like, all right, I know.
I've been here before, and like we talked about this already, but like I know you do black out a little bit, but your body still has gone through the trauma. So you remember in that muscle memory sense.
You're like, oh, this whole thing.
Yeah. So like I'm sailing right now. I'm just kind of sailing.
And you know what to expect. So
I know what to expect. I'm also 7 days clean of booze.
Wow.
Which is ridiculous. No. I want to be clear here. A couple of things. Yeah. I want to be clear. I didn't like. I wasn't one of those people that got drunk every day necessarily, but I was one of those guys who would have a beer for no reason. And when we went to the Ryder Cup on Wednesday, which was a week ago today,
that was not a sober day.
No, sir. And we started at 8:15 drinking. So we started early. I didn't end until I went to bed. And then the next day I woke up, man, and I was just like, you know what? I think I need to take a break. Yeah. I had this I was like, I just feel terrible, And I hate to say it, Kyle, but I feel fantastic.
Of course you do.
I feel fucking great.
And you're the guy who always rips on people for going sober.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like an idiot now because I was always like, have a drink, and it's true, and there is a time for that. But the scary part is I don't even want one. Like, what if I just don't have a drink?
I feel like now, once you reach a certain age, once you get over 30, everything is just sleep.
Yeah.
Like every problem in your life, can probably be solved by just 8 hours of sleep.
Sometimes my wife and I will get 8 hours, like a full 8, maybe 9 hours, and we wake up and like an hour into the day, we're like, that's all we needed.
Yeah.
Just a night, one full night. For like, dude, you get that like maybe once every 3 weeks as a parent now.
But so
it's crazy.
The best I'd ever felt like physically, at the time, I thought it was like, because I was just like working out a lot and doing the right things, whatever. Looking back, the only reason I felt so good was because I was in the fire department and I was doing jujitsu every morning. So I basically, because I was in the fire department, if I went out for work and stuff, I couldn't really get drunk because I might have to wake up in the middle of the night to go on a fire call. So I wouldn't get drunk. So I was like barely drinking. And I did. And then even if not, like I'd go to jujitsu at like 6 a.m. So I just like couldn't drink because I didn't want to be drunk and get strangled the next morning.
That's true.
So it basically forced me not to drink, and it forced me to go to bed early and to like prioritize sleep. So looking back, I was like, oh, that was why I felt so fucking good all the time. Because I wasn't drinking and I was sleeping probably 7 at least hours every night.
Yeah. It's very true. And I think what it was too is I went like the weekend without drinking. And I could have easily. Everyone else was. I was out apple picking. They had cocktails out and everything. But I was like, I'm good. I'm taking a break. And just like knowing that, like I went out the weekend was like, and then Monday was good. So then Tuesday's great. And then like it just, you get on a roll with it, and you're right that like when I was running every morning or most mornings, the night before I'd be like, I can't drink another tequila soda or whatever we were having just because it was Thursday. Like just, that's enough. I have to run in the morning. And so you just feel better. It's not the running. It's the fact that you stopped drinking. I'll never call it poison. It's not poison. It's not poison. Poison kills you. I don't know. Anyway, so does alcohol. But anyway, I have to say, as you get older, there is something to that. I'm not 20 anymore.
The only difference now is my morning routine has gotten messed up because of the baby.
Yeah.
Well, not like blaming her.
Well,
obviously, it's changed.
Everything.
It's changed a lot in that, like, I used to wake up and have my whole, morning to myself, coffee, read for a little bit, whatever, do my thing. Whereas, like, now I still do that, but I definitely cannot read in the morning. One, because I want to sleep in if I do. And then two, I can't read with the baby like crawling around anymore.
No, she's mobile now.
So my reading, needless to say, if you haven't been following my newsletter, Instagram, my reading has significantly decreased.
Yeah. Well, it's okay because mine's picked up. I'll take up the slack.
Okay.
Yeah, it's picked up because...
Well, you take the train every day. So
that too.
Huge.
The train is, I'll tell you, and that when I moved back and my commute was cut in half, it cut through my time for reading too. So I'm on this book. It's called The Faithful Executioner. It's about an executioner.
Sounds like an uplifting book.
It is actually. It's gruesome and violent, but it's not. That's not the point. It's about a guy named Frantz Schmidt he was born
Deutschland?
Yes, Nuremberg, Germany. I don't think he was born there, but he ended up there, living there. And for whatever reason, and that's why it's interesting, he decided in 1570s to like document and have a journal and diary about all the executions that he carried out throughout his career.
Wow.
Yeah, so this guy Joel F. Harrington, the author, he stumbled upon this memoir, which actually, by the way, it's not even that rare because, believe it or not, execution or memoirs were kind of like a popular genre in like the early 1900s.
Oh, he wrote it like...
No, this is a very recent book, 2017.
No, I'm saying, but the executioner write it intending for it to be published? Or was
That's
it just
the thing,
his diary?
Not really. No, it was like for himself, and it's just one of those things that someone found and it just got passed down and like published, and like it wasn't like he intended to release this.
That's the one thing I just thought about that the other day. I've been keeping a journal for a long time in a like marble notebook or whatever. And then after a while, it just got annoying because I wanted to write more details, but my hand would like cramp up from writing. So I was like, you know what, let me switch to doing it on like a Google Doc. And that way I can like Control F, find stuff in the future. But then I was like, yeah, but then there's no like, it loses that spark.
It just
you know what I mean?
It absolutely
when you're writing
does.
it on a doc that no one's ever going to find that. Like
Right.
it's my own private Google Doc linked to my Gmail. Like who's ever going to be able to locate that and find something interesting?
It takes the piss out of it of like someone finding it in a coffee store.
But that makes me
reason.
like when I read some of these older books where like The Wager by David Grant,
Right.
it's like that entire book was only written because he found the like captain of the ship's logbooks, right? And like he was able to piece together an entire narrative based on the logbooks and other people's journals and memoirs and stuff.
Right.
And I'm like, now that everything's digital, like that capacity potentially gets removed. Like
I agree.
You no longer have that, like people writing letters in World War II, and like you don't have that.
Well, it's
now.
also like you said that your hand cramps up. I feel like that's part of the whole thing because you have to be you have to write what you mean, and there's no room for fluff. Like with a typewriter, you can write all day long and never get tired. But with your hand, it's way more personal, right? Like you are putting this on the paper, and when you're typing, it's not really like that, right?
Yeah,
like,
and you can edit it and backspace,
and also there's like recommendations, like oh, you spelled this wrong, you spelled this wrong, and it's so funny. Like they talk about that too in the book. Like he's like, when you read through it, like it wasn't uncommon at the time for people to just misspell words, but like it wasn't intentional. It wasn't like they were illiterate. It was just because it was like a shorter way to say this, So like there's just that little romantic part of it, and so anyway, this guy did that, and it wasn't necessarily unheard of, but it because he would detail out the person's name, what they did, how it went.
The person he executed?
Yeah, how was it botched? Did it go well? Why, little pieces of information about, and I'll get into this. Let me talk a little bit more about.
Well, can I ask before you do? Was every execution method the same? Was it the classic
so this is
sword down?
It's interesting. We all have this like idea of what an execution is like.
This is another thing. Like
right?
you assume
these
read
things,
the headlines,
and it's exactly and it's funny that even like you imagine a guy with like a black cloak over his head, right? With
exactly with that big, dual-sided sword.
Yes, with the whatever the executioner's axe
or the guillotine. Yeah,
the guillotine, which wasn't invented till well after this. This book takes place between the memoir is written between 1570s and early 1600s, Nuremberg, Germany, Renaissance era Germany, coming out of medieval times. But that wasn't really what it was like. It was a sword. A beheading was actually reserved for like noblemen or citizens of the county who were in high standard, because it was considered a clean death, and it was swift. There was no torture involved, and it was like the least embarrassing, the least insufferable way to go. So you would think that we all think that's how everyone got it. There were well over 20 ways that these people would kill people, and the beheading was actually the merciful one. That was like, hey, that's this guy. Yeah, he's a nobleman, but
isn't there a like museum of torture?
Yes,
somewhere.
Yeah,
is that what we're getting into right now?
A little.
Okay,
it's not like the point, but like it's really just interesting historically, because another thing we assume is that executions, we think of them as like barbaric and ancient and like this horrific way of dealing with things, when in reality at the time it was actually an effort to maintain law and order. It was this like civil effort. Public execution was there to maintain like to scare people into behaving. So like it was actually a civil effort, not like this barbaric, like people are animals back then. It was really these people who were trying to bring society to an upper level from the medieval times where things were a little bit barbaric and archaic, and bring them to a place where like, hey, people need to understand that the authorities are deadly serious about maintaining law and order.
It was the original fuck around and find out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why they were public. Like now executions, like someone they get brought into it. I always thought about like that with the Kirk thing and everything. That guy's been being, the death sentence is like apparently going to be in his future. And I thought about like, when that happens, am I just going to be on like the train and like he's just going to be in a room and I just have to like believe that they killed that guy? Like no one gets to see it, No one gets to watch this thing.
The last
happen.
one was like Saddam Hussein, right?
Yeah, and even that was like, a grainy cell phone video. Like we didn't film it. It was like some guy filmed it and happened to make its way over here. But I guess that was public, but it wasn't like I don't think it was in a town square or anything, It was in like a weird room. Anyway, but the reason why they were public is because they wanted to scare people into behaving. And so that's why a lot of the executioner part of his job was to display the corpse after it was carried out, and people who were hung would often lay there until they were fully decomposed, and then when they would, their skeleton would slip through the rope and just fall into a pit underneath the gallows. And it was this daily reminder, like, don't murder anybody, because that's what happens. You remember your boy Ryan? Look at him. And like it really was this effort to bring people out of the medieval way and into the new way, the Renaissance.
I guess.
Yeah. I mean,
it's one way to do it.
So like, well, let me explain a little bit more. Like at the time, it's a great book because Harrington takes historical context in general.
How did you hear about it?
Honestly, it was a Spotify recommendation. Because like they have audiobooks and too. Yeah, I'm listening to it, but I do that thing where I have to buy it too.
No judgment.
No, I know, but I go back and forth because I just feel like it's different when you read it. You know what I mean? But I am listening on and off when I can or whatever if I'm working. So he really goes into like, he creates the world of Nuremberg, Germany at the time and why it had to be this way. At the time, coming out of medieval times, it wasn't uncommon for like a group of rogue soldiers who just like lost a battle and abandoned their people and their king or their kingdom. And now they're just like roaming the world as a group of like armored, weaponized men who are going to just take what they want as they see fit, right? So Heinrich was Franz's father, and he tells the story of when he was in a village growing up. These soldiers came through and they, murdered everybody, burnt all these things to the ground. They forced women unto their will, and all that, the way to put it, however you want to put it. Kidnapped people, terrible things, violent crimes, all of that. And they destroyed the place. And then they just went to the next village to do the same thing. So as these villages were picking themselves up off of their feet, and whoever the authority figure was, a duke or an earl or whatever it was, they had to maintain law and order as best as they could, but they couldn't employ an executioner, right? So like they would, in the ancient way, they would, the old way of doing it is to assign the task to somebody that, is either willing to do it or someone that you have a problem with. Heinrich had this issue with the guy who was in charge. Long story short, he gave him the job of executioner. Now, being an executioner is a big problem back then. Yes, you're being employed. Yes, you're just doing as you're told, but there's a stigma attached to an executioner, you know? Like, imagine you watched me cut 3 people's heads off. Even though you know me, you would still look at me different.
Yeah, imagine small talk at cocktail hour.
Right.
So,
what do you do? Well, you know, remember your brother-in-law?
Tough
he killed
day at
that
work,
guy.
huh?
He got executed. That was me. That was actually me.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was this big stigma. You were low class. You weren't allowed to like live inside the city walls a lot of the time. So like, anyway, his father became an executioner against his will. It wasn't his choice. This guy made him do it. So like most people do, and especially at the time, Frantz, the guy who the book's about, the guy who wrote the memoir, he just followed in his father's footsteps and just read the books his father read and became an executioner himself. This is a common thing. It would be like a lineage of executioners over time. And it wasn't like the punishment met the crime. Like you could get put to death for robbing somebody.
So what kind of ways would he
so this
typically
is the thing.
do?
So it depended on what the person did. There were a lot of things. There was drawing of blood. There was flogging, which is just basically beating somebody or whipping them. But the most gruesome form of torture and execution was something called the wheel.
Oh yeah.
Now the wheel
familiar with that.
is really interesting. The wheel was reserved for people who did. Frantz actually, in his memoir, he details out the first wheel he ever had to perform on somebody. It was a guy who went into a guy's house, murdered this husband, and forced himself onto the wife and all of that you can imagine. And then they were about to eat dinner in the home, and he ate the meal off of the dead guy's body with the wife, forced her to eat as well, all while like cursing him and defiling his body with like a knife, which at the time was like a big deal. That's messing with a corpse. That's blasphemy, which is a whole other story back then. So anyway, this guy was sentenced to death by wheel, by the crushing of the wheel. Now the wheel was rough. So it would start with somebody being all limbs roped to, so they're bound, they can't move, usually over a staircase, right? And the executioner would come with a carriage wheel, and their instructions would be to crush this person's limbs one by one, all the way starting from the feet to the head. Now, sometimes this person would also happen to be somebody who knows someone in politics. Maybe they know someone high up in the town. So they would inform the executioner, to begin at the head. So hopefully they either die or go unconscious before the rest of it is carried out, so you don't have to deal with it. But normally, feet first, so you feel the whole time, you know what's going on. So they'd start with your leg, they put it against the part of the step that's, uneven, and crush your ankle against it. So it has to break in half. So they break both your ankles in half, both your feet, both your femurs, my God, then your hips, right? Crush the what are your hip, the pelvis, excuse me. Crush your arms. Again, they have to bend in both directions, snap in half.
This is just before they put them on the wheel.
the wheel part, the real wheel part. So this is just the beginning. So you're laying there in total agony, right? And then the executioner had to take the body and interwove and sort of weave it in between the spokes of the carriage wheel, which is only possible now because you've been bent in half in ways that aren't humanly possible. Lord. And then once you're around the whole wheel, and you're just like that now, and then they would suspend the wheel on like a pole, and you would that's it. You're just there now. And you'd either bleed out or internally bleed, or some people were, apparently they lived, one guy in Frantz's experience was alive up there for 9 days in agony.
Jesus.
And
people would watch this?
Well, they'd watch this, and some people were forced to watch it. Like if you didn't show up, that was a crime, because they wanted people to understand the next person who goes into someone's house and murders them and has their way with their wife, this is what's going to happen to you. And that's the way that, I mean, how else could you enforce things like that without a police force, without, in a situation where you don't have armed people who are just constantly patrolling the kingdom or the village? Like, how could you really enforce that these things don't happen? So it's horrible and it's violent. But it's also necessary at the time. It was necessary, I think, from what I can read. Apparently, these things were happening all the time.
I'm sure. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so they would be up there for a while. And then, so the reason that they would also leave them out, because this was a very religious time as well in Europe, that, you know, while they're up there, obviously rodents, birds would feed on them and eat them alive. And that was meant to, even if you were dead, it would prolong your transition into the afterlife as long as possible, keep you in limbo, purgatory, or whatever. So, yeah, rough time.
And message received.
Yeah.
If you're standing in the town square.
Correct.
Okay.
Throughout his career, he carried out 394 executions, which actually is like 30 a year. So or 32 a year. So it wasn't like it really was that often.
I guess how many murder cases are you getting in one city?
Nuremberg, you know. And at the time, Nuremberg was actually a really nice city at the time. It was actually pretty clean for the era. It was basically civil.
I'm trying to think, are there any other notable Germans alive at that time?
The kings.
When was Martin Luther? He was
know.
1600s or something.
I don't know. I really don't know. But I'm not done with the book yet. But it's actually kind of a cool story in that this executioners were also like I said, they were low class citizens. They weren't looked at with nobody wanted to spend time with them, wanted to be seen talking to them in public. They weren't invited to parties.
I feel like they probably had some other sort of specialty or expertise.
So that's what I'm. Yeah. So they were also they were medical advisors a lot of the time because they were more experienced with the dead.
They know how to break bones and
Correct.
stuff. Yeah.
So they learn a lot in their career. So this guy Frantz became one of the most well-paid executioners in Europe at the time.
Good for Frantz.
Good for him.
Yeah.
And he also became a medical advisor to doctors because they had a lot of questions about anatomy, which he knew he would see because a lot of the time disembowelment was a thing too. So he would see that, and they had questions, and he knew about major arteries and he knew where these things were on the body.
Hey, doc, allow me.
Yeah, listen, I know where the carotid artery is. Trust me. So. He got paid for these things as well. So a lot of his efforts, he was trying to clean his name, the Schmidt family name. He wanted to make it so that we weren't just these, the kids weren't just bred of an executioner or whatever. They were, he was trying. So at the end, I can't wait to get to the end because apparently there's this point where he writes a letter to the king and asking for that. For them to kind of come out of this ceiling that they keep hitting because he's an executioner. But he becomes a well-respected person in Nuremberg, and it's I wonder what happens with that. So it's funny, though, that I heard some politician, maybe in Florida, talking about she wants to bring public executions back, which is so Florida. But that's she's her point was no, people need to understand what happens when you commit a crime. What happened maybe? We don't really do that anymore. Even executions now, it's usually firing squad or...
Because electric chair they got rid of. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
There's another one with... They still do gas in Florida, I think. Gas chamber.
I wonder how many states...
Yeah. You can pick out which ones they are too, but
No, I feel like I wouldn't have expected Utah.
Only because of the Mormons, I would think maybe I feel whenever there's a big religious... The
Mormons were pretty elite. Did you watch American Primeval? No. On Netflix. Oh man,
Mormon
dude, wild,
good stuff.
It's a fictional story, but it's kind of based on real times in the 1800s America. So it's a mom and her son traveling basically to the west, trying to get to California, and so they go through these different railroad stations and stuff in the 1800s, trying to find someone who can basically, they can hitch a ride with someone on horseback or in a carriage to get across the country. They go into Utah. And they get met by the Native American tribes there who are warring with the Mormons, who are warring with the other settlers in there. And it's a 6-part series.
It's only 6 parts, love it.
But Peter Berg, I listened to him on a podcast. He was explaining how a lot of the research that went into it, he wanted to respect, the Native Americans. So he wanted to make it as accurate as possible.
Yeah, yeah.
And the Mormons in that show are depicted as pretty savage, especially Brigham Young.
Oh, he's in it?
Yeah.
Brigham Young's in it?
Well, not the guy.
Plays him? Yeah. But right.
Yeah, but he was a savage.
No, he was nuts, dude.
Yeah, so
he was crazy.
That show is also brutal, so definitely don't watch
Brigham
it.
Young, if you don't know how that whole thing started.
That's another one. Now that I watch that, I kind of want to read up.
Just listen to the Book of Mormon or go see it or whatever. Or like, just watch the South Park depictions of it, because even the Mormons think it's hysterical, because it's like, it is outrageous what this guy like came up with. I'm sorry, but like if you're a religious,
I know nothing about Mormonism.
It's you know. Well, he
Have
was.
you ever met a Mormon?
I don't believe so. They're apparently the nicest people in the world. Yeah. My wife loves Real Lives of Mormon Wives or whatever, that stupid show. And yeah, they're all women who like realize that the church is a cult, and like, or to them, I don't know if that's true, and like left it, and now like they have to deal with the drama of like their family disowning them and shit. So, but it's a really cool book, and it's one of those books that really opens up your eyes to history, and you realize that like, I know things were a certain way, and I know people love to tear down statues and whatever, but like, everyone's just doing their best, and they've always just been doing their best. Like, everyone's been out there just trying their literal hardest to make sure that the next generation just has it 0.0001% better than the last, you know? Because even in the book, Frantz is like, I think about I mean, not that he says this really, but like, you can tell he feels like the things my father dealt with. Oh, can you imagine?
Yeah.
And it's like, this guy's life is a joke, like, you know? And
he
like,
looks back at the 1300s like, oh, those savages,
dude,
those barbarians,
bro,
my God.
Medieval times, what a bunch of morons. And they were still burning women at the stake, and like for witchcraft in this time too. And, you know, it was a bad time. But also these things, though, you realize that they all led to true civility within a society, you know? And, I mean, it wasn't, look, the last person that was killed by a guillotine was like the 70s.
Yeah.
The 1970s. Like, that was
I always stumble across that fact.
Yeah,
whenever
it's
you come out, like,
the same year
facts.
it came out Star Wars or whatever. That's the fact.
Yeah.
But it's true. And, yeah, I mean, like, the execution, it's not just like... And by the way, that's capital punishment when you get put to death. There was also corporal punishment, which is even like he does express that like it was almost better to just lop someone's head off than it was to break all their fingers. Like, that's kind of like...
Wait, what is
so
the difference?
A corporal punishment is when you aren't put to death, but you're physically harmed. So like, they would break your fingers if you're a thief, or cut your tongue out if you said something wrong.
That was probably very common, I imagine.
It was. And it was also like to the degree of how much of your tongue. Like, they take just the tip if it was just a curse.
Some of my favorite things in history are when you read about like these like awful things people would do to each other, but the level of like chivalry that was involved.
Yes, like,
and it was like, well, if you're gonna cut someone's tongue, here's the proper gentlemanly way to
use a hot blade so it doesn't bleed all over the place. Like,
and like they write it down.
He's a human being.
Yeah, they have like rules and like etiquette.
Yeah. No, like for real. There was like instructions and like the right way to do these things and all that. And it's a really harrowing story at the beginning when he's like, he was practicing with his father. Like, I imagined Mickey Mantle like swinging, and he would swing a sledgehammer with his dad he was a railway worker or whatever, but like
throw heads at him.
Yeah, no, he
away.
Was practicing with his dad in like their yard. He's like, I'm gonna become an executioner for a living, and like he would practice on pumpkins and trees and stuff. And it's so funny, like smashing a pumpkin and imagining it. And then so this father comes home one day and he's like, I have like a surprise for you, son.
Oh, Jesus.
And he's like, you're gonna kill something today. And it was a dog, a stray dog, a violent.
This is a scene out of a movie.
Yeah, someone make the movie. Truly, I'm telling you, this is a movie that could win an Academy Awards all up the board. Incredible. Get Daniel Day-Lewis to do it, whatever, you know. And it would be so good.
Yeah.
What a great movie.
You got that guy in there.
Yeah, dude. His new movie came out. It's called like Anamaya. It's like Acapulco or something. It's a weird name. Strange name. But his fucking son directed it. It's fine. Anyway, his father comes home. He goes, you know, he brings home this stray dog, but apparently it was a violent dog. It hurt somebody. It was like it wasn't like a puppy.
Me the details.
It wasn't like George, you know. But he, you know, and like I won't go into what happens, but like Franz's only comment on it was like, you know, it's much different when it's moving. I'll say that it's much different when the target is moving. So I'm sure that didn't end well for the dog. But interestingly, he also documents in detail this one particular one that they talk about, where not all the executions would go right. Some of them would go wrong, meaning that it takes a couple of swings to get the head off or something, right?
Butter knife.
He tells this one story about this girl. She was, dude, the language in the book makes you laugh because it's like she was a common whore or something, you know? I mean, hey, there have been whores forever, you know? Women who just don't care. And like this woman was caught being adulterous or whatever. And so punishment is beheading. And he takes the first swing and it doesn't go through all the way. And she's on the floor now and knocks her down and everyone's watching and like everyone's upset. They're like, that's another thing. Executioners, sometimes they'd get put to death if the public demanded it for botching something so bad. Because like they don't, a lot of them, like I said, don't want to be there. They don't, but they have to. You have to show up. Very strange. So anyway, she falls to the ground and she starts screaming like, have mercy on me, have mercy on me. And he's like struggling to get her back up to finish. And then he takes another one that doesn't come off again, like the whole way through. And she's like gurgling and like she's like screaming.
The only reason I'm not stopping you is because I'm picturing Daniel Day-Lewis doing
that's
this.
That's what I'm saying. Dude, the movie is gonna be sick.
Like Gangs of New York type.
Yes.
Style,
or when he's like, when There Will Be Blood, he's like, I've abandoned my child, and he's on his knees. That's dude, that guy. And anyway, the third one does the trick, and he notes that the public was so upset that he was almost put to death for it because they were like demanding that he pay for this, because the whole point of a beheading is that this person isn't going to suffer. It's like a noble, clean death. Remember in Gladiator when in the beginning when they're about to behead Maximilian and he says Maximus and he says at least give me a clean death, and the guy pulls out his sword and that it's actually just a trick to get him to whatever. But awesome book. Very entertaining and very insightful to history.
Well, speaking of that, like the chivalry and stuff, I just learned, I don't know how true this is. You know, you hear these things on like internet or podcasts or whatever, but the way that jiu-jitsu got started in Japan was the samurais were basically like mercenaries, like hired to kill. But they were like a community, you know, but there was kind of like, you know, mercenaries like in a movie where there's like rivalries and stuff. They're all trying to like kind of kill each other. So they'd have like feuds because they were each fighting for, you know, a paycheck. So like there was rivalries amongst the samurai who got to be hired to kill a certain, you know, purse that would feed their family essentially. So, but there was also respect and gentlemanly warfare within the samurai community because that was like how they, you know, they trained and everything was very disciplined and stuff. So they weren't allowed to kill each other. You were like, that was a law of the samurai code. You could not kill another samurai. But when they had disputes, the only time that they could have these fights was during like a communal lunch. I almost picture like a cafeteria.
I was just thinking of that.
In like feudal Japan. So they would have these fights or like wrestle or, you know, just fight hand-to-hand combat, and they couldn't kill each other. And they didn't want to like, you know, totally beat each other with fists and everything like that. So they kind of invented a form of wrestling in which you could break someone's arm and harm them, or break their leg or like, you know, whatever, and harm them, but you wouldn't kill them, but you would harm them enough so that he couldn't get the job to hire the mercenary for that killing. And that was kind of how jiu-jitsu got its
because a fight, it would be obvious, like you got a black eye or fat
so
lip.
it's basically like the art of like breaking limbs and not like killing someone.
Jesus, you could have used those. You used you guys in 1570s Nuremberg instead of a cartwheel.
But I don't know how true that is, but even if it's not, I think that's just a cool like, origin story.
I heard a fact today. I guess it's so funny how your phone listens to you, but it said that there are more castles in Germany than there are McDonald's in America, and it's like, I believe that.
I could, I guess,
because I only believe it because this book, like again, like just like how many lords were there? Like you've realized like all these little communities, they all have like this guy that lives in a castle somehow. It's like it must be just the way back then. It was just, you know, it is what it is. So you're not reading anything?
No, so I'm like kind of in between books. This morning I started the Frederick Douglass biography, which has been on my list for a long time because Frederick Douglass is just like such an iconic. He's, again, one of those guys that everyone knows the name, knows what he's famous for. Black History Month, they always talk about him. And that's one where I'm just like, I want to get inside this guy's head. Like, I want to know how he grew up. Like, his story is unbelievable. So, like, do you know are you familiar with his story?
Not really.
So he was a slave. He was a slave who basically...
He's on the front cover of one of my favorite metal albums, though.
Apparently, he was the most photographed person of that time because he was by the end of his career, which we'll get to, like how he got that way, but he was traveling. They said he was, between him and Mark Twain at that time, were probably two of the most well-traveled Americans.
Interesting.
Because they were going all over the world.
He joined the Navy, is that true? He was a military?
Douglas? I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe. But
I feel like he's like on the cover of this metal album. I just want to say real quick, it's it's really interesting. It was a black guy, and he was on like the internet, and like he's a musician, and he was like, what should the next album be? And some racist asshole was like, make it slave metal, because he's black. And he was like, that's actually a really good idea. So like that now, like, and it's a great album. It's called Devil Is Fine, and it's got like these slave chants in it, like from way back in the day, like those, like one of those fucking things. And it's in the background of the music, and you hear chains, and not like whipping and stuff, but like chain, like it's just this shackled. It is metal in a way. It's like, you know, suffering and whatever. And he's on the front cover, and it's like, dude, it's this boss picture of him, like, and it's just like, yeah, slave metal. So cool. Yeah. Anyway,
yeah. So he grew up a slave, I think, until he was like 20 or so, maybe even later. And I don't know the full story. I literally just read
I know you just started.
I read the intro this morning. That's it. So a lot of this I'm just like kind of guessing. But he basically taught himself to read, taught himself to write, taught himself to speak like proper English. I don't know how he got the ability to do that, whether it was someone helped him or it was just all self-taught. But eventually he became like one of the best orators of his time and would travel across the country, basically speaking.
What's the time frame here? This is what? Just Google it.
Pre-Civil War. He was alive during. He was
like
alive
1830s or something.
He was alive during the Civil War. Yeah. So I think he lived for the entire, like, I think he was born in like 1800 and died in like 1895, or something like that. But yeah, he became one of the most influential like abolitionists, and like his arguments were so good that it was like almost, he was kind of like a Charlie Kirk. No, I'm just joking. But he was, I was just making sure everyone's awake. No, but he, yeah. And if you, every like Black History Month, they always share this one famous speech or famous writing from him that's just like, so even to this day is like, geez, like how did someone, let alone a slave, how did anyone was like this smart and like such a clear thinker and like ahead of his time and like believed in the Constitution? And like nowadays, you know, Republicans will like reference Frederick Douglass as like a famous, you know, individual rights Republican.
See, I love blacks.
Yeah, so
that whole thing.
It's gotten a little.
I have a black friend.
Carried away, but yeah, I mean that's a guy. You talk about like reading history or like biographies of really important people. Like that's just one I feel like has been missing from my list for a long time.
Frederick Douglass. I mean, it's funny, going back to the Louis C.K. Theo thing, when he talks about Abraham Lincoln, Louis, very briefly, he brings up like the American voice. He brings up that's why like the American greats like Ernest Hemingway or whatever, or, you know, these authors, the whole, you know, everyone knows them. And he talked about this Irish woman, Margaret something, I forgot her name, but she's a very famous author. Or I mean, she's not that famous, but she's a great author. She's an Irish American woman, and
Flannery O'Connor.
Flannery O'Connor, excuse me, Margaret.
I listened to that podcast as well.
Yeah. But he talks about that line at the end of that story where she says, it was this bitter old woman, and she was cranky all the time, and then she gets gored by this bull and whatever. It's this whole story, but like when she's dying, the line is, her eyes, like she could finally see, but the light was too unbearable, or something like that. And like again, it's this kind of, like you said, clear, simple yet profound way of speaking. It's purely an American thing, and Abraham Lincoln would do that too. He'd say these things where like they're not like, it's not like a lengthy, long, how did you come up with this? It's just the words are they seem like to be picked perfectly, and that's kind of our charm as like American literature goes. Like it's just this way of talking.
The Gettysburg Address, it's famous for like it's how concise it is.
And I think whenever he was doing that, Louis talks about how he was debating one time during like a presidential thing, he spoke for like 2 hours, and like Abraham Lincoln
We've spoken about this on the podcast.
For 2 minutes or something. And he says to him, Mr. President, I would be ashamed if I didn't say, you said in 2 minutes what I couldn't say in 2 hours or something like that.
Wow.
You know, and it's like, it's just the truth. Like it's like a Nietzsche kind of thing. Like I can say in a sentence what others can't say in a book. You know, those are the greats. Those are the people who really stand out, you know?
Yeah, I wanted to read history, so I got the Frederick Douglass, and then I got the new Dan Brown book, which I'm excited about because I love him. He's the best. He hadn't written, you know, Dan Brown?
I mean, have I read anything by him?
Da Vinci Code. Yeah,
I've seen Da Vinci Code. Yeah, Angels and Demons. I love.
But those are some of the best fucking.
I fucking love the movies.
I call it literary popcorn because he's the king of like short 2 to 3 page chapters, and they all end with a cliffhanger. Yeah. So like you do this anytime I read a Dan Brown book, you're like, all right, I'll read like 3 pages. I'll read this chapter. And then you get to the end, you're like, fuck, I got to read the next. And then you just keep doing that. And then you go to sleep at like 2 a.m. But he hadn't written a book in like, I think 10 years. So
yeah, it's either that or, oh wow. So that's exciting. What's it called?
The Secret of Secrets, which is not a great name.
I mean, you know, it's him though.
Yeah, like it's the Tom Hanks character from Da Vinci Code. Okay. Robert Langdon is his name.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, like, that's the only thing I can really find right now. It's like, it's either got to be a historical book or a novel like that, or a memoir or something like that of an executioner. Like, who the hell? I thought of that too. Like, it's so unique. Why would I've never thought for a second what the life of an executioner was like, or what he was thinking about doing what he does. Like, that shit's just fascinating, you know?
Yeah, but I'm definitely trying now to intermingle way more fiction in.
Yeah, I noticed
just because it gives you like, yeah, I think history gives you like that perspective of like logic and thinking, but I think fiction gives you that like feeling and emotion and empathy and compassion for different ways of living, different ways of feeling, different ways of seeing the world that you would never experience.
I thought of this today while I was reading it because I started to feel for him because he was having this moral conundrum about what he does and like his faith and everything, and like, I mean, you can imagine being religious and having this job, right? Like, or whatever, but like, you know that it's for a better cause. It's for like the authorities were all religious too.
Can convince yourself of that. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And like, exactly. Right. Like, so he has this problem, and like, I started to feel for him, and I realized like, you know, part of the problem with society today is like, if anyone cares what I think, is like, people always say no one thinks about anybody else anymore. They only think about themselves. But this book made me realize, like, it's not about thinking about somebody else. It's about thinking through someone else. Nobody thinks through anybody anymore. Like, I had to sit there and actually think about, it made me think about how he felt, you know? And I guess that's empathy. That's being empathetic or sympathetic to someone's feelings and situation. And that's
consideration,
yeah, that's the more accurate way to put that. It's not that no one thinks about, because I think about people all the time, but unless you're thinking through them, putting yourself in their shoes, so to speak, like, you're not really connecting with them in a serious way that will change anything.
I forget if I spoke about them on this podcast, but 2 great fiction books I did read. One was Intermezzo by Sally Rooney, which was like kind of one of those like, yeah, I don't think I talked about it, but it was one of those like highly touted, you know, top like fiction books of the year. It'll probably get turned into like a Netflix movie or something. The plot I can't even really describe. It's kind of like a love triangle based on these 3 people in Ireland, but it's just really well written. So that's as far as I can talk about the plot, but it was just a very good written book that I enjoyed. And then the other one was Frederick Bachman, who wrote Beartown, which is another book I loved. But he's such a good fiction writer, and his book was called Anxious People, which
you liked that one.
The title is a bit of a misnomer, but it's like a funny, almost like murder mystery type book, and it's really unique. And he's such a good writer that like all these characters kind of like embody different people we all know in our lives, and like the struggles that they're going through, but it's like in the guise of a kind of a crime gone wrong, and it's funny, it's like sad, it's dramatic, it's like heavy at moments, but that was a really good book that I'd recommend to like the majority of people even people who don't read much, like Frederick Bachman, any of his books, Man Called Ove, Beartown, he's a really good writer.
All right. Hey, Keith Sullivan, didn't mean to scare you. Just wanted to give you a heads up. There's only about 3 minutes left of the episode, but if what you're about to hear sounds like it was recorded inside of a garbage can, well, that's because my professional audio workstation decided to stop doing its only job. So instead of the smooth, velvety voices you're so used to hearing wrapped up nice and tight inside of a pro audio tortilla, what you're about to hear is going to sound like you just stumbled upon a pirate radio station run by a moose. But don't worry, the content is still golden, of course. It's just wrapped in a crunchy, low-budget tortilla. Bone apple teeth. So that's it for tonight.
Yeah.
We're all gonna die.
That's right.
And it's coming.
What's your most favorite phrase?
It's true.
Yeah.
We're all gonna die. Mm-hmm. So don't worry about it. Have a drink. Don't. Have a drink or don't. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But don't.
Clean your room.
Clean your room.
We're all gonna die.
We're all gonna die. So just look, it sounds bad. But why I say that, it's because it means that...
It's very stoic of you. Memento mori. You know
well,
that?
it is. And I didn't even realize, but remember we die, is that what that means? Yeah. Like, I say that to mean, like, so you may as well do the right thing, or be as best as you can.
I see it as you may as well do whatever the fuck you want.
Well, it's not, though. Because I always have, like, a moral upward compass, I think. I mean, I'm not the greatest person who ever lived or anything. I'm not saying I'm like number one or whatever. I'm not even fucking close. What I'm saying is if you have a good heart, and I mean, like, because people always go like, what's the point? Who do you fucking care? It's like, well, you're going to live once and you're going to die. So you may as well just do the right thing. You may as well make this the greatest that it can be. Because if you don't, then it's not. And it could have been. But you didn't. And you're dead now. And yeah, it doesn't matter if it was or wasn't. But while you were here, you didn't do it. Why? You know?
Especially if you get executed,
right?
Yeah.
Well, now we beat that, so to speak. We're out of that era, so you don't have to worry about that. So just don't do it. Don't worry. You're gonna die anyway. So you're gonna make something nice while you're here. Just do it, or don't. It doesn't matter. But since you are here, you should. That's all I'm saying. All those
picturing you as a therapist,
right?
Like that's
It's like, how was it, honey? I'm just confused. I'm more confused now than I was when I walked in. But honestly, he's right, and I don't even care anymore, whatever I was upset about. No. Because I'm going to die anyway, so
you fixed me.
May as well just have a good time. All right. Don't... Anyway.
Thanks, Rick.
We'll see you for episode 41 soon.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Good night.
Bye.